This is the 1st of November, 1994. Today is my first day of writing the new Star Wars series. Took my kids to school this morning. My oldest daughter was sick all night. I got no sleep whatsoever. This is my life. This is the hole I live in, a cave I hibernated. I have beautiful, pristine yellow tablets, ready to go. Nice fresh blocks of pencils. I'm all set. All I need is an idea. The original notes and the original outline are, I don't know, 15 pages. And this whole early part was written to set up the films that were made. I had to sort of figure out who everybody was, where they came from, how they got to be where they were, and what the dynamic relationships were between everybody. There is drama inherent in it because there is a lot of betrayal and a lot of things like that going on. But a lot of the subtleties of the story and the intricate weaving of themes and everything hasn't really been done at all. This book was put together when I was, actually I was writing, I think I wrote graffiti in this book actually. I wrote graffiti and all the Star Wars in this book. It's great to be able to sit by myself and just be able to do this. It's like a real luxury actually. And, you know, I don't feel a lot of pressure. It's kind of fun. I'm getting to do a lot of research, which I love to do, and I'm getting a chance to think. How did I do that? I get to do a lot of things now that I couldn't do before, create things that weren't possible to create before. I was always, and I will be on this, but I've always been sort of at the limit of what is possible in terms of storytelling. Things have advanced so far in the last 20 years in terms of your ability to portray things on the screen that were just literally impossible before. I think about the scenes all the time, and you know, they come in a mosaic, and then eventually all the pieces come together. And then there'll be some missing ones, and then I have to sort of sit down and really work hard to get from point A to point B. My oldest daughter was born during Jedi. Since then, I slowed down quite a bit, and I focused more on my family. This is going to be the first time I go back and try to do a movie of this scale with this much intensity. It starts with me sitting here doodling in my little binder, but it ends up with a couple thousand people working together in a very, very intense, emotional, creative way to pull it off. And, you know, it goes from, you know, my nannies to the producers to the camera crews to ILM. I mean, it's all over here. It's just a dream. It's just a kind of a thing that I can sit here and do and say, wouldn't it be great if? And then pounding that into reality takes a huge amount of effort. Yeah, the interesting part for me is, you know, I started all by myself. And then almost immediately, within about 3 or 4 months of starting to write the scripts, I brought in Doug and a few of the other designers. And then we, you know, there's a little group, and then we started building that little group that's the design group from the attic. And we've worked for 2.5 years together. And what I've done is, you know, over those 2.5 years, spent huge amounts of time approving, changing, and finalizing designs for things. You know, thousands of things.
Fine art was very important, especially to the Queen's people. And they really appreciated it. You can tell in their architecture, their sculpture, and their clothing, and so forth. And in episode 1, that element naturally carries over to their hardware or their vehicles. I grew up on certain types of science fiction films. I was a big science fiction fanatic as a kid. But when I saw Star Wars, I was really blown away, but I was actually kind of like, there are certain things that I didn't like about it. But the great thing was I went home and I kind of drew, my version of the X-Wing.
I'd make this cockpit about a quarter of the size that it is, and I'd stick it back here. And then I'd take the engine part and I'd sort of cut this part off right here. I
started with a staff of 2, and we were given a huge list of vehicles, creatures, environments, and whatnot to design. And it was just a matter of sitting down and trying to comprehend, where to start first, and then how to design something that will live up to the expectations of everybody that's going to see this film. George is very reactive, and he likes to kind of see things. And he basically just said, I need single-person fighters and shuttles and so forth. So this is like a small shuttle type thing?
I don't know what it is. Don't ask me those technical questions. It's neat, that's all.
My decisions on what is aesthetically pleasing is really hard to nail down, because what I like is, obviously going to be different from what somebody else likes. It's a matter of getting in sync with George, and I hope that I've kind of gotten in sync with George in this film. For the Starfighter, the good guys, it started out very differently, because I initially thought that the ships would be very angular, like the X-Wing, but George wanted to go more towards the handcrafted look. George would come in every Friday for our weekly meetings, and it was very difficult sometimes because we spent a lot of time and energy to draw beautiful drawings, and we put them up on the wall, and George will dismiss these designs very quickly. And it took me a while to get used to it, because one of our first couple of meetings I would put up a wall full of designs, and he would look at it literally after 10 seconds and say, I like this one, this one, this one. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 kind of had the industrial mentality in terms of spaceships were punched out. They were kind of like plastic materials. Things were kind of mass-produced. It kind of happened with the industrial design in the United States. We had, an era in the 20s and 30s where things were more romantic and the craftsmen were the king. But then slowly, as the Industrial Revolution took over, machinery and mass production became the norm. I'm not quite sure if this is George's take, but for me, when that pattern clicked, everything made sense in terms of designing for this film.
I was very clever in the first Star Wars films in that I kept the design very simple, and I avoided situations where I was going to get into trouble design-wise. This one, I'm daring to take the chance and see what happens.
I think about this constantly. I mean, it's going to the 3rd year, and there hasn't been a day or an hour where I haven't thought of something that could work. On the Starfighter alone, we went through easily 3 dozen drawings.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
That's only one vehicle in a world populated by many vehicles, many creatures, everything. For weathering, to see if this is the right amount, too much, not enough, what their general reaction is.
I would say this is the most distressed.
Okay.
And then they can do minor, less versions of this.
Okay. Now, the other thing that we haven't really addressed is like paint chips and things. Do you want to see that?
I think we can keep it pretty much the way it is. I mean, the one thing that I would tone down a little bit is this.
Okay. It's getting a little too dirty.
Yeah.
Okay. The whole point of this is what works for the story. It could be the coolest thing, but if people don't know what it is or how it works in 5 seconds, it doesn't matter.
The first full-size set that was started 2 weeks ago is Anakin's interior. I think that'll be the first set that George will see in about 5 or 6 weeks' time. This is the reworkings of Anakin's with an entranceway into there. Yeah. Added an extra little alcove on this side and the doorway straight out.
It should feel smaller.
So definitely bring the ceiling down.
Yeah, I would bring the whole thing down and make it, you know, kind of a little bubble-ish.
We're 8 weeks away from production now. Well, we're 8 weeks away from shooting, and the adrenaline's pumping, and we're churning things out as though there's no tomorrow.
When you got to have this finished by?
Tomorrow.
You'll need to bend the tube there and the intermediate one in here.
Yes.
Rake up here, we're going to put a decking up here.
Yeah.
And that forms our platform.
Excellent.
Anakin's Hub was quite an interesting one because obviously it was back in Tatooine, and George wanted it to have a certain feel of the homestead from Star Wars.
The look of the movie is very, very important, and you want to develop a look that doesn't call attention to itself, that is very natural, but is very unusual at the same time, and gives you this sense of an otherworldly situation. So we could take this out,
Yes.
and then we can sort of dress,
And use it for real.
dress this with
junk.
parts and
Yeah.
whatnot, which would be great. That would look good.
George was saying, you know, let's make it like any 9-year-old kid's bedroom. But of course, he lives in Tatooine, which is kind of slightly different. Now, if you don't mind, I'd just like to wander around a couple of the sets.
Yep, we're ready. Okay.
We are.
Just you?
Yeah. Well, I saw some of the photos of the set starting to go up.
Yep.
Home sweet home. All right, great.
Okay.
We've never dared go this far, but
It's sort of the first intimate area you've had almost, isn't it?
yeah, it is. We never saw Luke's
Bedroom or anything, yeah.
You know, it is important that we make this a warm boys' room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
only 9.
I'm not sure about a closet, but we could
Hanging around on the bed.
well, you could put a closet over there.
In our 20th century environment, the majority of things just blend in. It's not until you lay on your bed and you start to count all those different bits and pieces that you got there that go to make up your own set at home that you realise that you're actually recreating an environment like that, but in a completely different world.
72, take 19, pick up our big cameras, and action.
Well, I'd like to introduce you to Ty Teager, who's our prop master.
Hi.
And an integral part of our team with all the boys that we've got working here. Probably the best bunch of hooligans I've ever worked with in my life.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
You're a darling.
So, this is kind of our prop store. These came out of mainframe computers, which we'll either use as dressing or incorporate into something else. And in fact, already we've sort of taken half of them and put them in the panels in Anakin's room. All of this will be things that will be used in the Tatooine street, in the markets for displaying fruit and vegetables or whatever the guys might be selling. And we've just let the boys have their head and say, look, you know, imagine that you're going to be selling something down in Covent Garden, but it's not, it's the Tatooine street. I think these are gaskets, aren't they?
Yeah, those are gaskets.
Yeah.
That's an aerial off a fighter aeroplane. Held together with lots of very strong glue.
Yep. Very strong, believe it or not.
I mean, the only way you can actually realise what to do is by getting the boys here to actually come up with ideas.
What do you call it? Gizmo, techno sort of looking sci-fi equipment, really.
It's boys in paradise, really.
Yes, yes,
doing all
definitely.
boys
It's a boys'
stuff.
film.
It's a boys' film. Unless, of course, we were women, and then it would be women doing a boys' film.
I feel like I'm in some guerrilla army polishing guns.
just like doing a sculpture. We'd have the base of the gun, and then we start to put things together like a jigsaw and say, well, that looks good on the top there, and all of a sudden you've got a finished article. You know, when George comes over, we have everything nicely laid out, rather than saying, oh, there's a bit over here, George, there's a bit over there, there's a bit over there, because he wants to be able to see it in its nicest possible way.
Yeah, it's like having an exhibition every time he comes over.
That's a very good way of putting it, yeah.
Attachment for when he fires the cable. So what we're thinking of doing is making these out of a cast which actually fit onto the gun, which you can then take off the fire.
Perfect.
So that'll be on there, and then bang.
These are actually castings of the real original, but I think they're a gun that's held over like that. These are the machine guns, yeah, dummy machine guns. I mean, obviously they're making real shooting versions of these as well. There's a shot where they all pull the guns out of the holsters and put the rockets in the end like that.
Bang.
Binoculars.
Very good. Everybody looks so close. Should be something nice.
That was going to be the comm link for the Jedi.
No, that's good.
Okay.
We're always a bit selfish. We'd like as much stuff to be seen as possible. Yeah. And like the piece that you were spinning, I mean, that's a fabulous part. And maybe before they turn over, George would just have it spinning slightly. And things like that almost build up, don't they? They might actually start on that and pull out and reveal everything else, you know.
Well, thanks a lot.
The story's the most important, not the props. And you've got to get used to that. But it is the actors that are the most important, obviously. You know, we're just the background stuff, really.
Well, as you can see, guys, that was an amazing tense situation between me and George Lucas, and we did okay. Thank you very much.
I think he's fun.
Does he speak?
No.
No sound? No.
Well, they'll probably put some noises.
Some soundtrack?
No. He's just one of the senators, so he's almost a cutaway. We've got tons of these that are just
a few shots. Yeah.
In the middle of a major scene. But it's great, we've brought over all the old stuff. We've got the original Yoda here.
Have you got the original Yoda?
And the original Chewbacca, which we're not allowed to damage or touch or alter because they're iconic.
All the Einstein lines. I had to get something that would subconsciously register in people's minds. They'd recognise something vaguely, I hoped. And it seemed to work somehow or another.
There is another theory.
Yeah, there is a bit of me in it too, yeah. The comic bits. So there
it is.
This actually snarls and comes up, should come up quite a bit. Yeah, that still does. So does that one.
Yeah. If the foam hadn't deteriorated, it would still work.
Yeah. It's not too bad actually. And it does. The jaw does open, I imagine, a bit, does it?
Yeah.
Should do. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Is the tongue still movable? It's a little bit on the stiff side.
Yeah. Apart from changing from foam latex to silicon, because we're going to do the skin in silicon, which I'll show you when we get back there.
Silicon foam?
No, silicon rubber.
I mean,
foam,
yeah, silicon rubber.
And
of course,
it's because basically it can be translucent, and you can make it very soft.
Even the eyelids. Can you make the left eyelids, make them blink and the right eyebrow go up at the same time?
I told you it was tough.
The snarling. No, that's very good indeed. My goodness, that's great. All radio control. Lovely.
Creature shop? We're doing frogs, alien frogs for particular scenes. Everyone's done a frog.
This is a creature film, isn't it?
One or two, yes.
Sometimes something wrong about certain heads, but
we've got one of them.
I don't know, well, you put them in the back room, because what I've seen now, it's all got something, it's some character in it.
So, Stuart, we thought that we should do something to mark your visit. This is for you.
My goodness.
And it's from all of us.
Oh, that's
To say
fantastic.
thank you.
Oh, that is fantastic. That's incredible. That is fantastic. Well, well, well.
Okay, come forward a bit. Yeah. Okay, when you ready?
Ready.
Okay.
Action.
I was looking for a kind of sword fighting that was reminiscent of what was in the movies that we'd already done, but a more energized version of it. Because we'd actually never seen real Jedis at work. We'd only seen, old men and crippled half droid, half men, and young boys that had learned from these people. So to see a Jedi fighting in the prime of the Jedi, I wanted it to be a much more energetic and faster version of what we've been doing.
I'm Nick Gillard, I'm the stunt coordinator. When I was 12, I was sent to military school, which I hated, so I left and ran away to the circus. I got on the stunt register when I was 18. If you get caught on your toes, just step back and then go in. Just try that. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's no room for error in any of the fights. You won't see it because they're so fast, but if you slow them down and freeze-frame them, they can only parry there or they can only attack there. The moves are so natural or so correct. It's the only place they can be. Since they had chosen such a short-range weapon, they would have to be so good if they're up against ray guns and lasers. So they would have studied every great sword fighting style and come up with a kind of mixture of kendo and samurai and every sword style there's ever been, and a bit of tennis and a bit of tree chopping, everything that you could swing at. You can clock it super fast, right, like that. So as he comes in there, you go.
Well, that's good because we've never done that one before.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, when we train actors, we would write a fight that made to be a minute long, but that'll be in 5 or 6 sections of 6 or 7 moves only. So then we just go through really very slowly and then just start picking up the pace. So this is a Ewan McGregor lightsaber. We have to go through one fight. We're gonna have to get stronger ones made. They don't make lightsabers like they used to. We shot a test fight to set this style, this sort of Jedi style. I wrote it very much like a game of chess played at 1,000 miles an hour. And every single move is a check. There's only one way out of it.
Jedi are like negotiators. They aren't people that go out and blow up planets. They aren't people that shoot down things. They're more of a one-to-one combat type. So I just want the form of fighting and the role of the Jedi Knight to be special and more spiritual and more intellectual than just a fighter or a superhero or something like that.
Hi, my name is Cameron Finley. I'm 7 years old. I'll be 8 on August 30th. Hi, my name is Devin Michael, and I'm 9 years old. Hi, I'm Michael Rano, and I'm 8 and a half. Hi, my name is Jake Lloyd and I'm 7 years old. Hi, my name is Justin Burfield and I'm 9.
George wrote it knowing that it would be an incredible task to find the right child actor. He had every imaginable element built into this kid, from mechanical ability to earnestness. His look was important, his intelligence. And usually children's roles aren't that complex. And in Anakin, you had to have it all.
We tested literally thousands of kids. We went all over the world for 3 years, doing tests, shooting tapes.
We looked in England and Ireland and Scotland and in North America and Canada and the States. And it was a process of just going to every single location and contacting the agents, contacting the schools, and kind of throwing out this big net, bringing in as many boys as I could. I think I actually interviewed about 3,000 Anakins. And from that 3,000, I narrowed it down to 3 boys.
Scene 1A, take 1. Scene 1A, take 2. Scene 1A, take 1.
They had to be really good actors. They had to be kind of wise beyond their years. And they had to have a good charisma, a good personal quality about them that could carry this kind of a film.
We decided to bring them all up to a test screen at the ranch with George directing. That's a huge thing for a little boy to think that he could be the next Anakin Skywalker. I mean, in their world, that's mammoth.
This is Natalie.
Hi.
All right. So, Anakin is a little boy who lives with his mother on Tatooine. You all know where Tatooine is.
Yeah.
It's a desert planet. And he works in this little shop that sells used spaceship parts.
There's very few children who can actually act because acting is experience, and kids have limited experience.
You've never met each other, so this is the first time you've ever said anything to each other.
And speak. Scene 1, take 1.
And action.
I'm a pilot, and someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
You're a pilot?
All my life. I'm a pilot, and someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
You're a pilot?
All my life. I'm a pilot, Someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
You're a pilot?
All my life.
You're just a little boy.
I won't always be. I won't always be. I won't always be.
Great. Perfect.
We had Leia and Luke, and then from that we had to draw who their parents could or would be. And so we're kind of going backwards. Natalie had to look like Carrie Fisher, and Anakin had to look like Mark Hamill. I was matching parents to children, and I was matching an ensemble cast. I think you have to be a bit of a investigator, and you have to enjoy the chase.
I'll start with me. I'm Rick. I'm the producer.
Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm George. I'm responsible for all of this.
I'm Jake, and I'm playing Anakin Skywalker.
Races. Everyone came to the table equal, and everyone had an equal shot at it. It's just who's right for the role, and that was the only qualifier that I had to work within.
One of the most important things in this particular character is that he is a wonderfully nice boy. And then there's this very intuitive kind of gut feel you get about that's the one. With Jake, I just got that feeling.
I'm a pilot, and someday I'm gonna fly away from this place.
When you're a writer, it's an ideal world. You can create anything that you want to. But that translation from the written page to reality, therein lies the nature of my job. My sole function in life is to make what George wants physically happen. One thing I knew from the beginning was that Anakin was from Tatooine. There's no way you can really physically recreate that in any stage environment or even backlot environment. You have to go there. So very early on, Gavin and I went on a location scout to Tunisia. And we found an area in Tozeur. We figured if we went about 15, 20 miles outside of the city, in the middle of the desert, we could build our own town and make it as big as George wanted to do.
Okay, so these are all the pieces we get to play with.
We could use that as the cafe, or as redress it, take that. So the questions will become is how much more do we need?
We're talking about building this in Tozeur now, right?
Yes.
There's a wonderful art director that we hired called Ben Scott, and we put him in charge of setting up the huge construction job of building virtually a city in the middle of the desert. Is this where the cafe would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the cafe here. This is where Sebulba has a confrontation. Now, all these things have been made in England and then brought over here.
The most difficult scene to deal with in the desert was definitely the pod race scene. George was thinking about like a 747 type engine. I mean, they're 2-3 stories high, they're 15, 16 feet long. It took us about 3.5 months to build the 18 engines that we eventually sent to Tunisia. The movement of a crew to a location, it's like moving a small platoon across the desert. It's a campaign. And that brings a lot of complications, but it's really like war now.
And turn over. 26 George, take 2, A camera. And action.
It was 138, 140, 145 degrees every day. By 11 o'clock in the morning, you were so fried, you could barely think. By 1, you'd lost 3 or 4 pounds of weight. You feel like every bit of liquid in your body is boiling.
Just tell everyone to look to see if they have water next to them. If they have water, it has to go.
Amen!
We do not work on a normal level. We arrive and we shoot, and nothing stops us shooting, no matter what the natural disaster that hits us. As we drove back to the hotel after our 3rd day of shooting, I saw some lightning in the far distance. I was kind of alarmed by the lightning, but I figured it would pass during the evening. Sat down to dinner, and all of a sudden, all hell broke loose.
لا هو في الأول معناها جاء رمل ونسمع.
At the beginning, there were wind and the sand blew up.
It's going to be very, very, very hot today.
And we couldn't get radio contact with our security guards because they were holed up in the toilet.
نحن تخبينا في التوالة معناها في التواليت كرمك الله.
And they all ran to the toilet and they shut themselves in the toilet.
I mean, the main thing here is not to have panic and everybody just to be running all over the place. I think we have to head up little teams of people and work methodically through it.
It was devastating. You know, I figured maybe the tents would have been gone, but everything was gone. Let's get in here with Trish.
Remove the wall from the roof. Push the roof into the middle with the poles and pull the wall off, and then you'll find your belongings underneath.
You guys got the manpower, though, for the moment?
Well,
I think
for the
if we
moment,
get through
yes,
this,
we're fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Liam's wig, how's that?
They're working on it. They're still finding bits and pieces.
All right.
Moustaches and stuff.
It's only one piece.
No, it's not.
The engines, look at that. That is grim.
Is it okay?
We have Anakin, the little boy. These are his engines, which play the most crucial part in the movie.
Right.
They're split in 2, which doesn't look good. Yeah, this is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
All right, I think, you know, again, if we push this back to the end, I mean, if we can live with Anakin working on one engine, we've got the replacement pod, which is in good shape. This is pretty good shape. There's a little battering, but nothing that can't be fixed up. This piece we can actually crack. George was totally calm about the storm. The same thing had happened to him on the first Star Wars film.
I say it's good luck.
It is good luck.
It happened last time, and it happened this time. Almost, it's like reliving it.
Either you give up and you say, oh, let's go back to bed, and you panic. The only real thing you can do is just try and get people to rally around the task at hand. Luckily, we had this one set that we could still continue to shoot on. Pushing the pod race to the very end of the schedule, we never lost a beat after that, and we walked out of Tunisia the exact day that we were supposed to. I love shooting on location. I mean, that's my favorite. If you're working on a stage, it's always achievable. But when you're on location, you never know what's going to happen. Now, do you need that one down, George? You think they'll get away? They want here? Yeah, we do. We do? No problem.
Go ahead.
Can you get the local boys just to get that one last pod down, the red one over here? When we finally did shoot the pods, I volunteered to shoot a wide shot of the scene from a crane. One of the things that I could see that was so wonderful was not only all of our pods rebuilt, but beyond that sand dune was our whole base camp, which had been completely rebuilt. And to see it all working, seeing the second unit about a half a mile away actually shooting, seeing the first unit prepping for our biggest scene in the movie, it was joy. It was pure bliss. I'd hit the mountaintop. Perfect day.
George said that this film is definitely a costume drama, especially for the Queen. We looked all over to find inspiration for our costumes, and from Mongolia and Tibet and just everywhere.
Okay, some suggestions for some of those new costumes.
Ooh, this is in the right direction.
Okay.
If you could make that line more like this.
I am nervous about all of the costumes actually working. I was paranoid until I went to London and discovered what a real costume designer does. The baton has passed to her. What was drawn now has to be made real. She's going to make it happen.
Say 2 meters in the yellow going to pink. Would that be?
Okay.
We started off originally with only 5 costumes for the Queen. By the time we actually started filming, I think we'd increased that to 10 or 11 costumes. I don't think we see her twice in the same costume throughout the whole film. Because we're filming outside, we wanted a fabric that would move in a breeze. So we would have the breeze rippling through the top layers of her cloak.
It's got to be about 250 petals on here now. And it'll probably be about a total of a couple of days shooting. So we do all this work, and it's only for about 2 days.
What is this part of the coat, I think? That I've made red?
I think that would be safer being part of the underdress in a way.
I very scrupulously avoided fashion in the first 3 movies. I got around it, I just avoided it. But I'm discovering more and more in this one. You know, I walked right into fashion on this one, and I have not balked, so I'm going to be faced with it. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. So this is red, and then this is red. It's pretty intense.
Now, the major change from talking to George last night, quite like this dress to be an absolute cross-cut tube dress.
Oh, right, without
So that is a major, without any fullness, so it's sort of quite slinky. But I think you quite like the idea of being able to see through it.
Yes, well, it is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. I've asked if George could come at the end of lunch and have a look at it, so that you can just sort of see it before we get it completely finished.
Yeah.
Mike, could you maybe hold this for me?
Yeah.
Just drop that down a bit.
Yep, I think that looks good. Very good.
We got the effect that George wanted, which was a wedding dress that would be symbolic of happiness, possibly an ongoing relationship, perhaps. We're now about 4 or 5 weeks from the end of filming. We're still working and making costumes to be used next week, the week after.
And again, please.
And again, if you wouldn't mind. We made well over 1,000 costumes.
We needed an R2 that could actually go in very deep sand. We needed an R2 that could work in light sand. We needed a R2 that could go over door jams. But I think something in the fundamental design of that three-legged character has always been a difficult process.
R2 units are astrodroids. They're a spaceship mechanic that just goes along to fix the ship if it breaks down. R2-D2 has always been a problem, and it takes a lot of very clever engineering to make him reliable and make him do the things that he has to be able to do.
All we're doing is we're bringing him up to date inside, because when you look in here, it's amazing. It's a trip into the museum almost, because all this 20 years ago. We're also going to get the weight low. He was top heavy before, which I think caused him to tend to want to fall over quite easily. Yeah. So. We now have 7 R2-D2s which can run on either the sand or on the stage, plus 1 Kenny Baker one, plus 1 we call the pneumatic one, which means it can go from 2 legs to 3 legs. R2-D2 actually, loving little creature that he is, turned into quite a nightmare for us. Now the first sets that we were on were Anakin's hovel, which meant R2 had to come in from outside, and the floor was uneven, so that was causing him to skid off at various angles, making him very difficult to control. The sand was getting in the chains and just locking the motors up, and they were shearing shafts and gearboxes.
Day by day, we were getting frustrated. You know, and it's one thing when you're dealing with an actor, you may do 4, 5, 6, 7 takes, but when you have a character that's been around for 20 years, that is run by a pretty simple mechanism, you expect him to be able to work.
Cut. Cut. I have bad droid karma. On Jedi, the droids just were perfect. R2 could do anything. He was amazing. We had 15 of them, and he went out in the forest. He went in the forest, in the desert, everywhere. And action. Action. Cut. Cut. Yeah, I think we'll give up on this.
Halfway through, George was pretty frustrated by having to wait around for R2. And it frustrated all of us because we'd spent so much effort and time and money trying to get him to be right. It was at that point when I said, okay, let's just do a huge event. Let's try and create the final R2, the R2 that can last forever. ILM did one version, and then our special effects department in England did another version. It wasn't a spare no expense experiment, but it was an experiment to see if 2 different groups of people could come up with some kind of mechanism to allow him to be a little bit more reliable.
We got 2 wheelchair motors that could push 440 pounds and created the new one, the Uber R2.
We produced a completely different foot and motor drive system to get him to run on sand. And we got him running quite nicely in Tunisia.
Is this the American one?
Yeah.
I'll just have to run him over and wreck it, otherwise he put me out of business. This is the other R2, is it?
Yes.
And they both, without consulting each other, came up with their own design, which was very similar. Finally, we have the definitive R2 who can do just about anything now. He can go through the sand, over door jams, he can move quickly, but sadly, life isn't perfect. We still have people who have to operate R2 by radio control.
Hello, Daddy, Captain.